Hey guys, good morning. Welcome back to our channel, the Eaton Squad. So on today's video is about the proposal of shortening the mandatory quarantine from 14 days to 10 days. Details coming right up. So President Rodrigo Duterte had a meeting with medical experts yesterday regarding the mandatory quarantine for 14 days, and they proposed that this will be shortened into 10 days. You guys might be wondering why 10 days? We only had to go through 7 days in hotel quarantine. The arrival protocol is you will have to be quarantined at a hotel for 7 days until your swab test results are in. But you have to continue the remaining 7 days in your LGU or barangay continuously. So the total mandatory quarantine is 14 days. Now, medical experts is proposing that this will be shortened into 10 days. President Rodrigo Roa Duterte addresses several economic health matters concerning the nation anew, including discussions on quarantine protocols and updated responses of the government against coronavirus disease 2019 or COVID-19 pandemic. In his second talk to the people on COVID-19 this week, President Duterte invited medical experts to shed light regarding the ongoing quarantine protocols imposed on returning overseas Filipino workers or OFWs and travelers. Due to the presence of COVID-19 variants in the country, the authority imposed a stricter 14 days quarantine period for returning OFWs, but it also recognizes the economic and emotional burden it is causing people and the national government. According to medical experts, the quarantine protocols being implemented have been proven to reduce the further spread of the virus. However, given the circumstances raised by many Filipinos regarding the protocols, the experts proposed to shorten the isolation to 10 days, as long as the person remains asymptomatic. Likewise, they approve home isolation on the condition that the local government units or LGUs maintain stricter monitoring and health precautions are observed. So basically, the Philippine government is hearing the outcry to all travelers to the Philippines with such burden, especially with quarantine protocols, swab testing, the stricter mandatory 14-day quarantine or isolation when you go home to the Philippines during the time of the pandemic. Medical experts even said on their meeting that there is no need for swab testing as soon as you arrive in the country. You just need to isolate yourself for at least 10 days because this is the active incubation period of the virus. Medical expert says that 10 days isolation should work without swab testing. So let us listen on the highlights of this meeting with President Rodrigo Duterte and medical experts yesterday.
Before I proceed, let me welcome and also our thanks to our guest tonight who took time to join us and help us explain to the people why things are way they are. There are a lot of questions that which had just to be answered because the people have the right really to know what's going on. after all, we served them. You know, this is not really a scheduled meeting. But the last time we had a talk to the people, which Secretary Belio of the Department of Labor was invited. And in nutshell, he was complaining about the length of time that the OFW and returning travelers or travelers and OFWs are being detained, to use the word, too long. That's what he said. And it has depleted the budget that was been allotted by government sa kanila, sa Department of Labor. So, there was a bit of a discussion, but I thought it wise to just maybe cut it, and since this is a question of science and medical issue, it would be useless for us to be debating here and talking about these things. We will just invite the experts, and so that they can shed light, provide enlightenment to us and to the public why this is so.
Ang sinasabi ko nga, Mr. President, from the record of the IATF and TFTGROF, one-stop shop, yung COVID-19 testing positivity rate of returning overseas Filipinos for 2020 is only 2.07%. Ngayon, under 2021, Mr. President, the current quarantine protocol of 7 to 9 days stay of OFWs in hotel quarantine facilities, the COVID-19 testing positivity rate is only 1.5%. Kaya nga po kami nakikiusap sana, Mr. President, na kung mari, we go back to the regional protocol noon, na pagdating nung ating mga OFWs, swab agad sila. Then, they are quarantined for 5 days while waiting for the result of the PCR test. Kapag negative sila, then they can be transported to their final destination. Kasi, Mr. President, aside from the economic consideration, these OFWs have long missed their homes. Ang tagal nila abroad, kumikita, naghihirap para lamang kumita para sa pamilya nila. Ngayon, inuwi natin sila. And they have to stay for almost 14 days in quarantine. Notwithstanding the fact na after 5 days, they have been found to be negative. Bakit hindi natin sila pauwiin, Mr. President? And going back to my figures na 2.7% lang naman ang nagpapakita na yung ating mga overseas Filipinos nagpo-pass positive sila. Kaya yun po ang pakiusap namin. Of course, I will still yield to the decision of the IATF, Mr. President. Kaya lang gusto ko pong iparating yung kalagayan ng ating mga OFW. Talagang hirap na hirap sila, Mr. President. They are crying. Itong cellphone ko, Mr. President, no less than 300 to 500 text messages I receive from them every day. Kailan kami uwi? Ang tagal naman ng resulta ng PCR. Ganun, Mr. President. And we cannot close our eyes to the miseries of our OFWs. Kaya yun, pakiusap lang naman, Mr. President. Kung pwede naman, pwede lang. Kung hindi naman, then we still submit to the decision of the IATF, Mr. President.
While we are waiting, Mr. President, I think that everybody naman is cognizant of the fact that the quarantine has already, it really has an impact. But what our proposed solution po is actually there is data that we can shorten quarantine from 14 days to 10 days, provided that the person remains asymptomatic during that whole time. The second point that we will make po once I have my slide is also that the testing kasi, ang timing po ng testing is really the problem. If somebody gets infected in transit on the plane, pag tinest nyo po siya pagdating, hindi pa po magpa-positive yan. It usually takes 3 to 5 days for the person to turn positive on PCR. And so that's why po yung ginawa natin is we test on the 5th day. But based on the Department of Health data, in fact, even after the 5th day, there are still about 40% of people who still test positive on the 7th day po of arrival. So our proposed solution po kasi is that the testing, even on the 5th day, will still not pick up everyone. So it is either we test on the 7th day or we completely do away with the testing but make sure that we quarantine everybody until the 10th day po. And this can be done in facility, but again, it is very expensive, or we can do this at home as long as the LGUs can supervise strict every day. Parang po yung sa Singapore na alam po nila kung lumalabas yung tao o hindi, para sigurado po na hindi sila maka-spread ng COVID, because that is the biggest concern, is that if somebody comes in with a variant of concern and transmits it to the community, which has already happened in Pasay, magkakalat po talaga and magso-search po tayo ulit.
The technical advisory group had some preliminary discussions regarding the current issue, and we were thinking that based on the data that we have right now, it's a better option to review the testing protocol, make sure that it can be done at a later, rather recommend that it be done at a later time, but that the critical intervention should really be that quarantine should be strictly enforced, because whether or not testing is done, for as long as quarantine can be imposed, then we continue to keep our borders safe.
Yes, I appreciate and understand the physical, mental, and emotional burden, plus the financial burden, economic burden brought about by our quarantine policy. However, we recognize also that quarantine is really one way to prevent the spread of the virus, and considering that this virus has a pre-symptomatic, yung may tinatawag tayong phase na kahit wala pang symptom, pwede na siyang makahawa. Kaya that is the basis for the 14 days. Yung incubation period is 5 to 14 days. So median of 5 to 7 days. Ang pinaka-infectious period is yung first week, 5 to 7 days. And that was the basis of testing at the 5th day. But as mentioned by Dr. Salvania, and we looked for new data, so there is data from CDC, and they did modeling studies also, that we can reduce the quarantine period to 10 days, from 14 days without testing, and the residual transmission risk is just about 1%, can go down to 0.1 to 10%. So yun yung parang compromise, or it's a good compromise in the sense that we reduce the duration of the period of quarantine with minimal effect on the number of infections that we may miss out. So just for, as long as they remain asymptomatic without symptoms, and they will complete the quarantine period, no, in the LGU, at home, or at the quarantine facilities with strict implementation and monitoring po. So, the TAG experts, no, we concur that we can relax the 14 days to 10 days without testing as long as they remain asymptomatic and monitoring is strictly implemented.
So we will see how this proposal pans out in the next few days, if this is going to be approved, or is there any changes, or is there any counterpoints and stuff like that with the proposal coming from the medical experts regarding the shortening of the mandatory quarantine in the country. And I will definitely keep you guys posted just in case they will announce the new quarantine protocols when you are going home to the Philippines during the time of the pandemic. This is implemented in Manila and in Clark International Airport because Cebu has a different arrival protocols for overseas Filipino workers and non-overseas Filipino workers. But please take note, this is just a proposal. This is still on the table. They are still discussing the pros and cons on this proposal coming from medical experts. So we will await on what the decision will be from the Philippine government from this proposal coming from medical experts. Thank you so much guys for watching. If you find this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends and family whom you know that can use this video as reference. If you are new to our channel, welcome. We do travel updates, and if you are not a subscriber yet, please consider subscribing and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you'll be notified on updates like this. And to our subscribers and new subscribers, thank you so much for the continued support and trust to our channel, the Eaton Squad. I hope to see you guys on our next travel update. Stay safe, stay healthy, and God bless everyone. Bye.